The call came on a Tuesday, cutting through the low hum of Chicago traffic outside Clara Hayes' third-floor office window. It was a sterile, impersonal way to learn that the man she had spent the last 10 years trying to forget was dead. "Miss Hayes?" "This is Thomas Abernathy," the raspy, aged voice on the other end of the line said. "I was your father's attorney. I'm calling from Oak Haven. I am terribly sorry to inform you that Arthur passed away yesterday evening." Clara felt a strange, hollow sensation in her chest, but no tears came. Arthur Hayes had been dead to her for a decade. 10 years ago, she had packed her life into a rusted 1998 Ford F-150 and driven down the gravel driveway of Whispering Pines Farm, tears streaming down her face while her father stood on the porch with his arms crossed. He hadn't stopped her. He hadn't even waved. His final words to her had been a cold, calculated strike. "If you leave this farm for that city, Clara, don't bother coming back for my funeral." She had kept her promise. Until now. 3 days later, Clara found herself navigating a rental car up the winding, pine-choked roads of Oregon Route 42. The sky was the color of bruised iron, threatening rain. As she pulled up to the rusted wrought iron gates of Whispering Pines, the sheer state of decay took her breath away. The once vibrant white farmhouse, where her mother Beatrice had famously baked pies for the entire town, was now a peeling gray ghost of its former self. The sprawling acres of corn and wheat were overgrown with wild thistle and dead brush. It was a monument to a bitter, isolated man who had let his world rot after his wife's death. Clara parked and walked up the creaking wooden steps. Mr. Abernathy was waiting for her in the kitchen, sitting at the old oak table, surrounded by stacks of yellowed paperwork. With him was a man Clara recognized instantly, despite the deep lines weathering his face. Michael Croft, the farmhand who had worked for her father since Clara was a little girl. Michael refused to meet her eyes, his calloused hands turning a worn Stetson hat over and over. "Thank you for coming, Clara," Abernathy said gently, pushing a thick manila folder toward her. "I know the relationship between you and Arthur was strained." "That's a polite word for it, Tom," Clara replied coldly, setting her designer purse on the dusty counter. "Let's keep this brief. I have a life in Chicago I need to get back to. I want to sell the property, all of it." Abernathy sighed, exchanging a heavy look with Michael. "I anticipated that. In fact, a representative from Sterling Corporate Developments, a Mr. Kermick, Richard Sterling, has already made an aggressive offer. $2.5 million for the land. They want to raise the farm and build a luxury retreat. The papers are here. You only need to sign." Clara stared at the documents. $2.5 million. It would secure her future, expand her marketing firm, and finally erase the last physical trace of Arthur Hayes from her life. She reached for the silver pen on the table. Before the nib could touch the paper, Michael stood up, his chair scraping violently against the linoleum. "Don't do it, Clara," the old man grunted, his voice thick with suppressed emotion. Clara looked up, her jaw tightening. "Michael, with all due respect, this farm has been dead for years. My father let it die. He let everything die after Mom passed. There's nothing left here for me." "You don't know a damn thing about what your father did," Michael snapped, his eyes flashing with sudden, fierce anger. He reached into his denim jacket and pulled out a heavy, rusted iron key on a braided leather string. He slammed it onto the contract, right over the signature line. "He made me swear on a Bible I wouldn't give this to you unless you were about to sell it to the Suits. He said if you were ready to walk away, I had to make you look in the old stone silo first." Clara stared at the key. The stone silo sat at the very edge of the property, bordering the deep woods. It had been abandoned since she was a child. Her father had always told her it was structurally unsafe, forbidding her from ever going near it. "What's in there, Michael?" Clara asked, a knot of unease forming in her stomach. "The truth," Michael said simply, turning on his heel and walking out the back door, letting the screen slam shut behind him. Abernathy remained silent, watching her over the rim of his spectacles. Clara slowly picked up the heavy iron key. The metal was cold against her palm. Annoyance battled with an undeniable, gnawing curiosity. She wanted to sign the paper. She wanted to leave. But the sheer desperation in Michael's voice anchored her to the floorboards. "Give me an hour," Clara muttered to the lawyer. She stepped out into the biting Oregon wind, pulling her trench coat tighter around herself. The walk to the silo was treacherous, the path choked with aggressive blackberry brambles that tore at her slacks. As the towering circular stone structure loomed through the fog, Clara felt a sudden, irrational spike of fear. The heavy wooden door at the base was secured by a massive rusted padlock. Her hands shook slightly as she fitted the iron key into the lock. It protested with a harsh squeal of metal before clicking open. Clara pulled the heavy padlock free, took a deep breath, and hauled the heavy oak door open. She expected the stench of animal droppings, rotting grain, and decay. Instead, she was hit by the clean, sharp scent of pine needles, beeswax, and lavender, her mother's favorite scent. Clara reached out, finding a heavy switch on the stone wall. She flipped it. A series of warm industrial overhead lights buzzed to life, illuminating the massive interior. Clara gasped, taking a staggering step backward. The silo was not empty. It was a meticulously kept, climate-controlled sanctuary. The curved walls were lined from floor to ceiling with custom-built oak shelving. And on those shelves, arranged with obsessive loving precision, was her entire life. Clara walked forward as if in a trance. The first section of shelves held her childhood, her old muddy soccer cleats preserved under a glass dome, every single finger painting she had ever brought home from elementary school, framed in beautiful, handcrafted cherry wood, her middle school science fair trophy, polished to a mirror shine. "What is this?" she whispered to the empty room. She moved to the next section. Here the collection grew bizarre, and a cold sweat broke out on the back of her neck. These were things from after she had left. Things from her life in Chicago. There were framed clippings from local Chicago business journals mentioning her marketing firm. There was a copy of the program from her college graduation ceremony Arthur had supposedly boycotted because he couldn't be bothered. There, pinned to the wall, was a dried corsage from her wedding day, accompanied by a candid photograph of Clara walking down the aisle. The photograph had been taken from the back row of the church. He had been there, hiding in the back, watching her get married. In the center of the silo sat a large, heavy mahogany desk. On it lay a stack of leather-bound ledgers, a thick medical file, and a single, sealed envelope with her name written in Arthur's familiar, blocky handwriting. Clara's legs gave out. She sank into the heavy leather chair behind the desk, her trembling hands reaching for the ledgers first. She opened the first one, dated 12 years ago, the year her mother Beatrice had died. The town narrative, the story Arthur had told Clara, was that Beatrice had suffered a sudden, massive heart attack while driving, causing her to crash into the Oak Haven Bridge. But as Clara read the meticulously kept accounts and diary entries, the floor seemed to drop out from beneath her. October 14th. Doctor, Gable confirmed the worst today. Bea's liver is failing. The drinking has finally caught up to her. She drove into the bridge last night. She was blackout drunk. Thank God she didn't kill anyone else. The police chief is an old friend. He agreed to alter the coroner's report. He agreed to say it was a heart attack. Clara can never know. Clara thinks her mother is an angel. She needs that angel. If she knows her mother was a drunk who nearly killed a family on the bridge, it will break her heart. I will take the whispers. Let the town think what they want about me. Clara choked back a sob, her hand flying to her mouth. Her mother, the saintly, perfect Beatrice, whom Clara had idolized, whom Clara had blamed Arthur for not saving. Her father had absorbed the town's judgment, taking the blame for the family's sudden social isolation, just to protect Clara's memory of her mother. Trembling violently, Clara opened the thick medical file from St. Mitt. Jude's Medical Center. It belonged to Arthur Hayes. The dates began 8 years ago, the exact time Clara was preparing to leave for Chicago, the exact time Arthur had turned vicious, cold, and relentlessly cruel, driving her away. Diagnosis: Huntington's disease. Early onset. Prognosis: severe cognitive and physical decline within 7–10 years. Terminal. Oh, God, Clara whimpered, tears finally spilling over her lashes, splashing onto the sterile medical papers. She scrambled for the sealed envelope, tearing the heavy paper open with frantic fingers. Inside was a letter, written on lined yellow paper. The handwriting of the top was steady, but as the pages went on, the letters became jagged and erratic, showing the brutal progression of his disease over the years. My dearest Clara, if you are reading this, I am gone, and you finally have the truth. I know you hate me. I needed you to hate me. I needed you to leave. 8 years ago, doctor. Gable told me my brain was going to slowly rot away. I watched my own father die of Huntington's. Clara. It is an ugly, humiliating, devastating way to go. You're just starting your life. You had those big dreams for Chicago. I knew you, my sweet, fiercely loyal girl. If I had told you I was dying, you would have unpacked your bags. You would have stayed in this dying town to wipe my chin and feed me soup while my mind withered away. I could not let my decay become your anchor. So I played the villain. I broke your heart so you would fly away. And he did. But I never stopped watching you. Every milestone, every victory, I was there in the shadows. Michael helped me. When your marketing firm was going bankrupt 3 years ago, I sold the north 40 acres of the farm to a private buyer. I set up a dummy corporation through Tom Abernathy called Apex Holdings to invest the money into your business. I couldn't let you fail. The farm's ruined because I spent every penny, every ounce of my failing strength, building this silo for you. This is my true legacy, not the land. You, Sterling wants the land. Don't sell it to him. Attached to this letter are the deeds to a trust I built with the remaining money. It's a charter for the Beaters Hayes Rehabilitation Center for Addiction. I want you to tear down the old house and build a clinic for people struggling like your mother did. Clear our family's real debts. I am so sorry for the pain I caused you. Every harsh word I ever spoke to you felt like swallowing glass. But look at you now, Clara. You are strong. You're successful. You're free. I loved you from the shadows, because the light would have burned you. Forever your father, Arthur. A guttural, agonizing cry tore from Clara's throat. She collapsed over the desk, burying her face in the scattered papers, sobbing until she couldn't breathe. The sheer, crushing weight of his sacrifice, the agonizing loneliness he must have endured, living in a rotting house, his body betraying him, all while meticulously cataloging the life of the daughter who despised him, was too much to bear. She wept for the lost years. She wept for the harsh words she had hurled at him. She wept for the man who had loved her so fiercely he had destroyed his own image to set her free. She sat in the silo for hours, surrounded by the physical manifestation of a father's unbroken devotion. As the afternoon light faded into dusk, the storm that had been brewing outside finally broke, rain hammering against the stone walls of the silo. But inside, Clara felt a profound, shattering peace. When she finally emerged, her eyes were red and swollen, but her posture was straight. She walked back through the brambles, the rain soaking through her expensive coat, washing away the dust of Chicago. She walked into the kitchen. Abernathy was still there, drinking a cup of instant coffee. Michael was standing by the window, watching the rain. Clara picked up the silver pen. She looked at the contract from Richard Sterling. With a swift, aggressive motion, she struck a deep black line through her printed name, grabbed the thick stack of papers, and ripped them in half, tossing the pieces into the dusty sink. Abernathy raised an eyebrow. "I take it the sale is off. Tell Mr. Sterling to go to hell," Clara said, her voice raspy, but imbued with a new, unbreakable strength. She turned to Michael, stepping forward and throwing her arms around the startled old man, burying her face in his jacket. "Thank you," she whispered fiercely. "Thank you for taking care of him when I couldn't." Michael closed his eyes, his massive hands awkwardly patting her back as a single tear escaped his weathered eye. "He loved you, kid, more than anything in this world." Clara pulled back, wiping her eyes, and looked around the dilapidated kitchen. She didn't see the rotting wood or the peeling wallpaper anymore. She saw the foundation of something new. "Tom," Clara said, turning to the lawyer, "I need you to start drafting permits for a commercial demolition and a new healthcare facility. And Michael, I'm going to need a good contractor. We have a rehabilitation center to build." As she looked out the window at the rain sweeping across Whispering Pines, Clara placed her hand over her coat pocket, feeling the heavy iron key resting against her heart. She was finally home.